My mother-in-law showed up at the hospital and tried to take my newborn, and then she tried to file for custody without telling me. I don't even know where to start. This is going to be messy, but I'll try to make it clear. My daughter was born 3 weeks ago via emergency C-section. My wife, we'll call her, and I have been together for 8 years. We've always had a tense but tolerable relationship with M's mom, G. G is loud, opinionated, and very controlling, especially around anything to do with family traditions. She's never been violent or criminal, just dramatically overbearing. That said, I never expected her to cross the line into something like this. The pregnancy was rough. I stayed with M at the hospital for most of the last week before delivery. Work allowed me to. On the night the C-section happened, I wasn't allowed into the OR and waited in the lobby. It was terrifying, but M and the baby pulled through. We were in the recovery wing until morning, then moved to a private room. I went home to shower and pick up stuff for the baby, and was exhausted and sleeping, which I expected. I texted my parents and a few friends we wanted to announce to later, and I put my phone on the bedside table. I was gone maybe 45 minutes. When I returned, I saw M talking to G in the hallway. M looked tired, but not upset. I walked in, kissed M, said a quick, "How's my girl?" and the room went silent. G was sitting by the window with the baby in her arms. Not how any sane person holds a newborn. G smiled and said, "Baby is perfect, isn't she?" M looked pale. I asked how she got into the room. G said she'd come by to visit, and the nurses had let her in. I was annoyed, but tried to be calm. I asked the nurse at the station how G got in, and she said G had told them the baby's father, me, had authorized early visitors and had been on the phone with me. So they let her up? That was a lie. I had not called anyone besides my own mother. Also, the hospital has a visitor sheet, and you have to be signed in. G's name was on it with a timestamp 3 hours earlier, while I was at home. I asked to see the sign-in log, and the nurse said she'd check. Then things escalated. G refused to give up the baby. She started talking about tradition, first grandchild, and how women of our family always let the grandmother hold the baby first. She became more insistent when I asked her politely to hand the baby to M. At one point, she said, "You don't understand how important this is to our family. I won't let you ruin it." Her voice had this locked, quiet panic that made me angrier than I thought possible. M tried to intervene and asked G to give the baby back. G made a face like M had betrayed her and then yelled, "You don't know what it's like to watch your son die." She said dramatic things before, but this was extreme. M had to raise her voice to reclaim the baby from G. A nurse intervened and G left, muttering something about, "I deserve to be first." I thought that was the end of it until 2 nights later. I came home and saw an email notification on my phone from the county clerk. Subject line, "Petition for custodial rights." My heart dropped. I opened it. G, my mother-in-law, had apparently started paperwork to petition for guardianship of the baby, citing concerns about maternal fitness and ongoing family safety issues. The petition included a notarized statement from someone I didn't know, claiming M suffers from severe postpartum instability and that G is a more suitable caregiver. I immediately called M. She was in tears. She had no idea G had filed anything. G had told her family that she had been given permission by M to take the baby for overnight grandma bonding. Total fabrication. G had also called my sister-in-law and convinced her to sign a short statement that was later notarized. The whole thing felt like a very badly executed con. I panicked. I called my lawyer the next morning. He told us to gather evidence, file an emergency response, and prepare to show the court that M is fit and that G's claims were fabricated. The lawyer also told me to be careful about what I posted online. I have a small social media presence, and we needed to keep a paper trail and behave strategically. I went to the hospital and requested the visitor logs. The nurse gave them to me after I signed a form. G had indeed been signed in at 2:13 a.m. the night M had a C-section hours after I left. The nurse told me the person at the desk had been confused and thought the visitor was a different family member. When G said she was an authorized family member, they signed her in. The nurse looked embarrassed and apologized. They also said that usually the team restricts visitors, but in the chaos that night, someone had allowed extra people up for short moments because M had been critical. It was all messy. The nurse's note did not indicate G had full custody or permission to take the baby anywhere. We filed immediately to have the petition dismissed as frivolous and to have a judge block any custody action while the baby and mother's health were in question. I also recorded a statement from the night nurses, and we found out that the notarized statement from the unknown person was actually my sister-in-law's roommate, someone who had met G twice. We went to court the next week. G had legal representation, a small firm that does family mobilization type cases. Their argument was that in some cultures, older family members step in when the mother is medically compromised. They argued this was for the baby's welfare. Our attorney argued that this was an overreach and that the petition was fraudulent. The judge was careful. He ordered temporary no contact between G and the baby until we could establish the facts, and scheduled a hearing to determine whether G had standing. G went full nuclear. She started posting frantic messages to extended family accusing me of controlling my wife and disappearing after the birth, which isn't true. The posts were emotional and manipulative, and a couple of my wife's cousins believed her and messaged us angrily. My parents called to tell me to be cautious. And I had to ignore messages and keep a thin, factual record. I never expected to be in court because of my mother-in-law. I never expected someone so close to have so little respect for boundaries. This is the short version of the first 3 weeks. I'll update with a hearing and further developments. Update, 6 days later. The hearing went okay in the sense that the judge ordered an investigation and kept a no-contact order in place for G until the investigation was complete. The investigator, a court-appointed social worker, interviewed M, G, several nurses, and a hospital administrator. They looked at the hospital logs, the notarized statements, and G's social posts. 2 things came clear. 1, G had proactively pushed the narrative that M was mentally unstable. She called a cousin and told them M was hallucinating in the hospital. That's not what happened. M was exhausted and medicated post-op, not hallucinating. The social worker said G exaggerating the situation hurt her credibility. 2, the notarized witness was not credible. The roommate who signed the statement admitted under oath that she didn't know enough about the situation and had been pressurized by G in a grocery store conversation to help her. The social worker used the phrase undue influence. The court will probably dismiss the petition, but not until the process finishes. In the meantime, G has been staying away from the baby, at least in person, but the online pressure continues. She's been messaging my wife's sisters and aunts, telling them how dangerous our home is, which is false. A couple of relatives have sided with her because she's the matriarch who's told them stories all their lives and painted herself as a victim. M and I are mentally exhausted. We sleep when the baby sleeps and spend hours with a lawyer compiling evidence. I took photos of messages, calls, hospital logs, and even a quick video of M playing with the baby to show how present, loving, and competent she is. Our lawyer told us to keep the baby's routine quiet and stay off social media because anything we post could be twisted. I feel like I'm fighting on 2 fronts, the legal system and the family court of public opinion. Update, 3 weeks later. The investigator finished the report and it was devastating for G's case. The hospital logs corroborated our timeline. The notarized witness recanted. Several relatives admitted they were confused by G's stories and hadn't verified facts before reacting. The investigator recommended dismissing G's petition and suggested a family mediation session if the parties wanted reconciliation. The judge dismissed the petition with a strong admonition to G. Any further attempts to interfere would be considered harassment. The judge also ordered G to attend a mandatory family mediation session if she wanted to see the baby under supervised conditions. That part sounded reasonable, but G refused mediation and instead promised to take it higher. We thought that would be the end. For a week we breathed. Then G took a different route. She called Child Protective Services. She said my wife had been neglecting the baby and that the hospital staff was too afraid to speak up. It felt like deja vu. Our lawyer told us not to panic. CPS has a protocol and will do its own evaluation. The CPS worker came out, interviewed M privately, looked at the baby, checked the house, and spoke to our pediatrician. They found no evidence of neglect. The worker later told us that these kinds of calls from family members are, sadly, fairly common and that their priority is safety, not family drama. The CPS case was closed after a day, but we had to live through the stress of someone inspecting our home and asking personal questions. M cried for 2 days after that visit. G's online campaign continues. She's writing long posts about protecting grandchildren and standing up to reckless parents, and people in the extended family comment supportive things. Our phones keep lighting up with messages from people who think they know the full story because they read a single emotional Facebook post from G. Update, 6 weeks later. We had mediation. G finally agreed to it because her lawyer advised she needed to show willingness to reconcile in front of the judge. Otherwise, the judge could sanction her. Mediation is a weird combination of therapy and legal talk. The mediator pushed us to make a plan, supervised visits, agreed boundaries, and a written commitment from G to stop disparaging him online. G signed the agreement, but kept pushing secretly. A week after mediation, she tried to drop a public post that violated the agreement by naming M and accusing her indirectly. Our lawyer filed an emergency motion citing her breach. The judge fined G and ordered her post taken down. After that, the public post slowed. We tried to be generous. We allowed supervised visits with a social worker present and set firm boundaries. No overnight stays, no unscheduled drop-ins, no asking the baby's pediatrician for access, and no speaking to M's family without consent. G kept pushing, but she also started disappearing from family gatherings, either by choice or because people put distance. The family dynamic changed fast. Where I once saw polite silence, now I saw side eyes. Final update, 3 months later. G has backed off. The judge's orders are in place. She's been ordered to attend anger management and to avoid social media posts about the case. We're still technically under the court's temporary order for a little while, but everything points to normalizing. Here's the thing I want to say to anyone reading this. Family can hurt in ways you never anticipate. You don't expect a parent to try to take legal action to remove a child from their own parent. And it's shocking how quickly words can escalate into legal moves. We thought G loved the baby and wanted the best. It turns out she wanted control and is recovering well. The baby is healthy and gaining weight. Our pediatrician told us we were doing exactly what a loving, attentive parent should do, and she's become one of our biggest supporters. We have a small circle of friends who have checked in daily, and my parents who have been practical and calm through everything. My father even sat in court and never left our side. We're not naive. We know the relationship with G is probably irreparably changed, but our daughter is safe, and that's everything.